Welcome to Wayward Writers. I'm senior literary agent and author Heather Cashman.
I'm author and writing coach Stephanie Bearce.
And I'm author and writing coach Nicki Jacobsmeyer.
Our mission is to nurture and enrich established writers throughout their publishing journeys.
We welcome all genres, age groups, and publishing paths through video podcasts, online webinars, in-person retreats, and more.
We're here to help you conquer your path.
Welcome to Wayward Writers. We are excited this episode to have Marc J Gregson with us. Thank you for coming, Marc.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat with you all today.
So we're going to chat about how do you protect and even increase your creative spark when debut success suddenly turns writing from a private passion into a public, deadline-driven, and successful career. So actually, I think this is something that's really important to talk about for writers, especially established writers, because we often we need to be able to use our art to earn a living sometimes, but sometimes that earning a living can destroy our art. So I think this is an important topic. Anyway, Stephanie, will you tell us more about Marc, please?
Marc J Gregson is a New York Times bestselling author of Above the Black Trilogy and Behind the Glass. His work has been released in several languages across multiple continents, and his trilogy starter, Sky's End, is in development as a major motion picture. Congratulations, Marc. Sky's End has received several starred reviews and has been selected for Best Year list from Kirkus and Bookpage. Marc is also a middle school English teacher. He enjoys pizza, making unbearably bad bear puns for his aggrieved students, and sleeping. On occasion, he reluctantly does yard work where he lives in Salt Lake City, Utah, with his wife and children. Welcome, Marc.
Hey, thank you so much, Stephanie. Happy to be here.
And as I was talking to you a little bit before, I understand the back to school frenzy. I used to be a teacher too. So can you tell us, besides teaching, tell us a little bit about your writing and publishing and journey? How did you start and get to where you are now?
Yeah, before I signed with Heather back in 2020, I've been writing for about 20 years, hoping to get published. And really, I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning. I just realized I enjoyed it. I've always been an artist. I've always liked to create things. Never connected with me that, hey, I could write and I could make a whole story. I was mostly dabbling with sketches and things like that. And then I got a Halloween short story assignment when I was in junior high. And it was about a killer squirrel that ripped people's throats out and started the zombie apocalypse.
Yes, please. When do we get to read this, Marc? Wow, you're holding out on all of us.
And I realized, I was like, man, I could do whatever I wanted. And about that time, the Peter Jackson's adaptation of the Lord of the Rings, the Tolkien Lord of the Rings, were starting to come out. And so I decided I wanted to write my own big, epic, high fantasy. It was quite terrible, but it took me a long time to finish. And then once I finally put that book away, which was a really instrumental part of my journey, was putting a book away and moving on to the next one. Then I just started getting better and better. And I kept writing. And then finally I got to my sixth book, which was Sky's End. And then that attracted Heather's attention. And then I wrote Behind the Glass. And then that kind of sealed the deal for Heather. And I've written a whole bunch of other books since then. So it's just a step by step, just climbing up the ladder kind of thing.
That's wonderful. I will say that I am not a sci-fi reader. I don't know what about it just doesn't get me. I promise this is complimentary, Marc. Stay with me here. And when I've been friends with Heather for a long time, and then we started Wayward Writers, and now I'm her client, and I was like, you know what? I want to read Marc's book. He's my agent sibling. I hear it's good. This has got to be something. And I will tell you, I actually love yard work at my place. I'm in rural Missouri, and we have this little piece of heaven. So I get to digest almost a full audiobook by the time I'm done mowing. And I literally just devoured Sky's End on audiobook. So I guess what I'm saying, for those of you that are not sci-fi readers, read this anyways, because you totally escape. You're not even realizing you're in a genre because you are in this world. So Obviously, many other people loved it. And as a writer, we all dream of hitting the New York Times bestseller list. What surprised you most about the reality of the whole thing?
Like of getting published, or what do you mean?
Hitting the list. Getting published is huge and a celebration in
Oh,
itself. But like when you got the list, can you tell us about how you were informed of this?
oh,
You know,
yeah. No, that's a good question. And thanks. First, thank you for your compliments. It's always so thrilling when I hear from readers who connect with Sky's End, and I hear it from a range of people. Either I get a lot of reluctant readers, actually, people who, for whatever reason, they stop reading and then they hop back in. And I've been pretty happy to hear that people are saying it's approachable, which is something I was hoping for. Hitting the list was really special. I knew we had a chance, and like Heather and I had talked about it, and we knew that there was a possibility because we were just getting so many pre-orders, and then the cover reveal went viral and all those things. And then in tandem with that was like the Kirkus review, and the other reviews started hitting, and the ARC reviews are hitting, and people were responding really well. And so those things were building up and surging up together. I remember hearing I have some connections with some other authors, and one of them was mentioning to me that it was like within this range and this range. I can't remember what it was. It was like within an hour range. This is when you would expect to be hearing if you would be getting a message or something from your editor that you're going to be getting. They want to have a phone call. And I remember that time frame passed, and I was like, dang, I don't think we did it. We still had an awesome launch, but I don't think we did it. And then legitimately 15 minutes later, I got an email from my editor. And he's, hey, can we chat? Preferably we're in a time when your wife's with you. And then Heather and I were texting each other back and forth. Did you see Jonah's email? Like, and it was super, super awesome. We hit the list. Jonah called and offered congratulations. And then my wife got home, and she wasn't able to be on the call. She had to work late that night. And then she had me go out and snow shovel.
oh, congratulations.
And then
Hey, that's the reality of it, right? You can make the list and you still got to shovel snow.
And then she filmed this and then went and posted
all that energy.
And we had a lot of fun. So yeah, that was a great night.
That's awesome. So did anything surprise you once you hit the list? If you thought it would be different, or
I don't know if there was anything that like surprised me. I noticed that like my Goodreads numbers skyrocketed for a day. There was like hundreds of ads on Goodreads. It was really cool because it was something I could share with people and be like, look, we hit the list. I learned that my students have no idea what that means. I told them that I hit the New York Times, and there was a video.
They don't care as much.
And they cheered, and then they were like, what's that?
Yeah.
And
I
then
remember
like
sitting that video. Yes. It was priceless.
Reality.
Yeah. Like they cheered at first, and then afterward they were asking me about it. And they're like, kids, isn't every author a New York Times bestselling author? And I'm like, no, you're probably just thinking of like the 10 who are always on the list and they're always prominently displayed in the bookstore. But it was really difficult hitting this list.
That's great.
It's interesting because I feel like, Mark, for you and I, this has been like the steps have been so gradual. I was at dinner with someone the other night and they were like, oh, you have a New York Times bestseller on your list. That's amazing. And boy, they've really made it. But like for me, I think you and I still see the struggle of making it. So do you feel like you've had a moment of that pinch me moment where you're like, I know that I made it? Or do you have like just a lot of pressure still? Or how are you feeling? Or both?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like you were mentioning, like I think other people, they see somebody else who's had some sort of success and they only see the tip of the iceberg, and they don't see all the work that was behind that led up to that point, the years and hardships and tears and everything else. I would say like how I am feeling, I'm a pretty driven like person, I think. And so I have a hard time being satisfied. And it's a curse because sometimes I'll talk to my wife and I'll be like, okay, I celebrated this milestone. And then by the next morning, I'm thinking, what next? And it's hard because sometimes I want to stop and just be like, wow, that's so cool. Yesterday, or I got to celebrate that Among Serpents, the sequel, we just got nominated for the Dragon Award. We're on the same list as Suzanne Collins's new Hunger Games book. And I'm already again thinking about what next. And so I think that probably helps keep me from becoming complacent. I have a hard time not working unless I take vacations. And I've realized that it's like my time where I actually will shut down is when I go on vacation. So we're doing more vacation now because I can actually stop working.
Where's Dad? Dad's not here.
When I'm at home, I'm always working and I'm always like thinking about the computer or going down to my writing office, or I'm brainstorming something. I go on walks and I listen to music, and then next thing I know, I'm caught in a daydream and thinking about a new story idea or where I'm going next with my story that I'm working on.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest part of being an author, is that it's never over. And maybe that's the good part of it too, though, that there's always something new to explore and something new to conquer. That's fun too.
Yeah.
As long as you take your vacations.
Yeah. Decompress, allow yourself to, wow, that was really cool. That was really amazing. And I was up in Bozeman, Montana. It's like hours away from my house. And I walk into a Barnes and Noble and they have my books and they were super happy I signed it. Then I go into a store in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and then they were super happy and they took pictures of me signing their stock. So it's pretty awesome. Like I have to sometimes stop and think about it and be like, this is really amazing.
It is. Congratulations. Sky's End was originally titled Downfall, and that's now the title of the third book. And it's been fun to see the whole series come alive after the first book. Heather says you have had some hard times with some edits and revising. How do you keep that initial sense of wonder you had in the beginning alive for book 3?
Yeah, I would say, especially at the end there, when we were working on edits for Jonah, we're getting into the copy edits for Sky's End for Jonah. I was like pretty much emptied the tank at that point. I had worked on it for years. I had done revise and resubmits with agents. I had a completely different version of the book that was out there, rewrote the endings, the beginning, you name it. And so by the end, it was just like I had exhausted everything. Like even time hadn't done enough for me, like stepping away. Eventually, it was like I just breathed the words of the characters everywhere I went. I will say, though, that the exciting thing of jumping into book 2 or book 3 and putting my characters in new situations. And one of the things that I do is I'm a discovery writer. Although I do have to write rough outlines for my publisher so they know that I'm not just like, I have a plan for what I'm going to do.
They do. They get so picky about that, don't they? I know.
But because I'm always improvising, usually things are pretty fresh for me. And I found that my best ideas are usually not my first ideas. And so I'm constantly, when I'm revising my books, they change tremendously. And Heather could attest to this. She's seeing what my books look like, even from a 6th draft, which I worked on for hundreds or thousands of hours at that point, to what it ends up finally being once it reaches the shelf. So I would say that for me, it's constantly finding ways to make the book better. And I'm following my characters and letting them dictate plot. Conrad's an improviser. And so because of that, makes exciting things. I was like, I didn't expect this to happen, but let's see where he takes us. And sometimes I'm like, no, we're not letting him take us there. We're going.
You're cut off, Conrad.
Yes.
Okay, you're talking about keeping it fresh. Are there certain habits that you continue to go to that help fill this dry when you get to that point? You mentioned walking and listening to music. What helps you during your process when you need to get creative and you feel stumped?
Oh, yeah. So yeah. The walking and the listening to music, generally it has to be just instrumental. I can't do anything with lyrics. They're too distracting for me. But I'll go on nature walks, I'll go on walks. And then usually, so my wife's, I call her like my alpha reader. She's like my very first reader. And so I will bounce ideas off of her, but sometimes it just depends on the project. Cause sometimes I'm like, I need to be careful about what I tell her, cause I still need that reader reaction to see if this moment in Behind the Glass, did this pan out the way I wanted to? I can't tell her what happened to you. But there are plenty of times where I'm like, okay, I have a problem here and I just need to talk through it. with somebody, I am stuck. I don't know what to do here. I also, another thing that I do, I call it like spiral writing. So you think of a spiral in a notebook, like where I go forward and then go back, forward and then go back. And so like generally when I'm moving toward whatever my end goal is, I run into some sort of problem. And so I have to go back and fix that problem. And then I can go forward again. And then it creates a new problem in the back. And then I just keep going forward all the way through until we get to the end of the notebook.
Very cool.
So, Mark, I understand. I was a teacher for years. You juggled the day job during book 1. Sounds like you're still juggling a day job, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what signals tell you when it's time or not time to reduce your hours or to quit the day job, or are you just going to keep handling both?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate that I am like living 2 jobs that I just love so much. And
It's great.
that I've heard that work doesn't feel like work when you're enjoying it. And so I genuinely enjoy teaching. But that first year when Sky's End came out, because I was doing mostly full-time writing and full-time teaching once I signed with Heather, because at that point I was like, okay, I want to increase my output. I want to have more books that Heather can go put out on sub, and then hopefully we can get a publisher to pick us up. And so I was working mostly, full-time then. But once Sky's End launched, it was a whole different animal, because then it started being like, we want to send you to this place. This bookstore wants you to come here. You get podcast requests, you get blog post interviews. And then the continual thing now, which is like the reality of a lot of authors today, is that they're promoting on social media. So you're trying to come up with content too. So there's a lot of things that were just adding up. And after that first school year when Sky's End launched, my principal came up to me and said, "You seem pretty tired, Mark. Would you think about maybe going part-time?" I was like, let me think about it. My first response was no. But then I talked to my wife, and my wife was like, yes. And so
Smart wife.
she was like immediately, yes, you need to do this. And I'll get a little worried too, because sometimes people, they talk down to teachers, and it really bothers me. They're like, you probably can't wait to like leave those kids and not be in the classroom anymore. And I'm like, what a hurtful thing to say. I love teaching, and I take my job very seriously, and I didn't want to feel like I would ever abandon the kids or anything. So I was never planning on ever reducing my hours in the middle of a school year, or leaving in the middle of the school year. So I went part-time last year, which was super helpful. It helped me edit Among Serpents. It helped me get Downfall to Jonah and Peachtree. And so it's basically a whole bunch of time for me and energy, because I found that my creative battery gets drained both by teaching and by writing. And when I learned that, it made me wake up early in the morning before I would have to teach. And so I was waking up at 5 a.m. just to do some writing. But then I would be gassed by the time I was go to bed, and I had to take naps every weekend because I was in a sleep deficit. Now at part-time, I feel like I'm in a pretty good groove right now. I will say that I am like already mapped out with my responsibilities, this is like making me wonder how long I can continue doing this, because school hasn't even started yet. And I'm almost out of personal days mapped out. And my personal days are not like for me to go take a brain break.
They're not
It's
personal.
Like, yeah.
You're working.
I'm being sent to Houston. I'm going to Nevada. I'm like, I still have, and I know that my 5th personal day is going to be up for the book tour. And then I might have to start doing some unpaid personal days and get creative. And so that's like making me start thinking, I don't know how feasible it's going to be if I'm running out of my personal days even before I've even stepped in the first day of the school year.
Yeah. It's good that you've found a balance, at least for now, where you're able to be the best teacher, you can be the best husband and father and author. So balance is
That's a lot of hats to wear.
Yeah.
All right. So, one of the funnest days of my life, I don't know about you, Mark, was when we found out that Sky's End was going to become a movie, or at least have the possibility of it.
Yeah.
I think when that movie option was sold, it felt, I don't know, it was just like so exciting and rejuvenating. And it was like, I think for me, that was like one of the Mark's made it moments. Like Mark's on the map. So at the same time, do you think that having that movie option and having the movie move forward and things like that, are there new pressures added? Or do you think it's made you feel more free about things? How did that change things for you?
Yeah, I feel like there probably was a little bit of added pressure because especially when I was working on Among Serpents, I started thinking might be a movie one day. And that was a weird sort of feeling, like writing scenes that might actually be on the big screen. That was pretty strange. I would say though that I didn't change too much. I feel like I'm a pretty cinematic writer. And the things that I naturally liked and gravitate toward in my stories, I think would translate pretty well. And that's probably why filmmakers became so interested in this. The whole process behind this, it was like I kept expecting the other shoe to drop. Oh, yeah. Because a lot of books that get optioned don't go anywhere. And then, okay, so at first we were going to announce, and then we're like, no, let's wait till we get a director or some big filmmaker attached to it. And I'm like, oh yeah, they're not going to find somebody. And then they did. And then it was like, okay, then it's going to stop there. Then I'm meeting everybody. I'm having Zoom calls with them. And then I start getting introduced to screenwriters. And then I'm having phone calls with the screenwriters. And then I'm hearing about the pitches that the screenwriters have for how they're going to do it. And it's just been really exciting because I feel like we're making steps that most books that get optioned don't make, that we're passing pretty big milestones. So I'm just enjoying the journey and I'm really excited about this. I feel like that too. Also, the movie brings us a legitimacy to the book. I noticed, like when I mentioned earlier, like the New York Times, which is awesome and people love that title and it's such a great title you can have within publishing, but people outside of publishing maybe don't always understand the significance of it. But if you say a movie, everybody understands the significance of it. It's been pretty special.
It's so exciting. I have to ask, do you still find yourself at any point getting imposter syndrome?
Oh yeah. What am I doing? Like, you don't know what you're doing. The inner critic is pretty fierce.
Yeah. I'm starting to think that's a part of being a writer. Like, if you don't get imposter syndrome, if I ever don't get imposter syndrome, it's okay. Clearly I'm doing something wrong because I feel like they go simultaneously.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think it's awesome that it's never enough for you.
Right.
And some people might see that in a negative light, but to me, that's so great. Like you're being fueled. Like, what is the next achievement? But I was curious. So even if you're a New York Times bestseller and have a movie coming out of your book, it's still a real thing. So all of you out there, don't worry.
Yeah.
So what do you do when the imposter syndrome comes? Do you like go back to an email from the screenwriter and be like, it's going to be okay? Or what do you?
I will say there were times, especially in the editorial process, anytime I get like my big developmental edit notes, I would go back and I would read things like from my editor. Like I remember Jonah, he said something to the effect of, I hope you're ready for your life to change because that's where this book is taking us. And I remember reading that the first time and my eyes like bulged. Things like that definitely have helped. Looking over like my DMs when I get messages from readers, that can help as well. I remember when I was working on Among Serpents and I was worried because I knew the book was different than Sky's End. And I was having some doubts and I would talk to Heather and I would talk to Jonah and they would say things like, Among Serpents needs to be its own book. And it's okay that it's not the same as Sky's End. It doesn't have to have all the same things. Readers are expecting something new. And just leaning on the people that I trust and whose opinions I value, that really helps. I don't want to ever be in that situation. I'm glad I have imposter syndrome because I don't want to be that like arrogant. This is perfect. You know, don't touch anything.
Exactly.
Good advice. Sounds like you have surrounded yourself with the people you need to have to support you and move you forward. And that's important. You've got a community there, right?
Yeah. And I think any writer, if you're really pursuing this, like it's so important to build that support group around you if you can, if that's available to you, either if they're face to face or if they're online. However, you need to have cheerleaders. You need to have people who are cheering you on or telling you're doing a good job, because you're gonna be mean to yourself. Hey, it's better to hear it from somebody who you trust and admire than from some 1-star review on like Goodreads or something.
Don't read those reviews.
No,
Any
right,
of them.
Rose.
Don't read.
Are there any lessons that you've learned or that you want to pass on about protecting your IP or your creative voice when you start talking to other industries and having those chats with those producers? And how does that all play?
I think that for me, there's a lot of people that are inhabiting it now. There's a lot of people that are going and visiting the Skylands and going and living in there in this world. And that's really special. And they're going to read things differently than I am. They're going to interpret things differently than I am. And when you start involving other artists, like filmmakers, for example, they are going to adapt things in a different way. And they're an artist. And so they're going to express it in a different way than maybe I. But as long as I think that it's true to the spirit, then I'm always going to feel comfortable with it, as long as it's true to the spirit of what I was trying. But for me, it's like, I can always look, if I ever get worried about something like that, I can always look at, here's my trilogy and there's my name on it. And then nobody's got it.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's great.
I love that. Okay, so we're going to do a lightning round. What is your best deadline snack?
Okay, I'm on a diet now, so I can't have it right now. But I milkshakes. I love the milkshakes. Utah, they're not like the drink out of the straw. They're almost like a runny ice cream. And I'll get them in like a chocolate cookie dough or chocolate peanut butter. Super good. And I haven't had one in over a month. But now
Look at you.
I got my copy edit, so I've got to be strong, Mark. And so that would probably be my deadline snack, is a milkshake. It's like, now I get to talk to my wife and be like, tonight's a milkshake night. She's no, and I'm like, yeah, she's okay.
I think finishing copy edits is a milkshake.
Yeah, when you're
night.
done,
Right.
maybe it's an incentive.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe there you go. There we go.
Big old milkshake then.
Okay, what is your favorite guilty pleasure procrastination?
Oh, like procrastinating, maybe it would be like video games where I can just shut my brain off. I don't have to think about much. I've been playing Jurassic World Evolution 2, where you get to build your own Jurassic Park and put your own dinosaurs in there and build their habitats.
Yes.
And that one's been really nice, and I can still be creative, but like still have my brain off a little bit. I think that would probably be it.
Okay, last one. What is one myth about debut success that you would happily debunk forever?
One myth, debut authored myth. I think maybe there's a little bit, some of the truth about that you need to have a bajillion Goodreads ads for your book to be successful. I know it's really hard. And like, I felt the same pressure myself of, I need to build up those Goodreads ads, because it's the only like quantifiable thing that you have. You don't have anything else to measure the buzz for your book. But I know plenty of authors who are enormously successful and their sales are way above whatever their Goodreads ads are, especially if you're writing for adolescents and children, because they're not on Goodreads. And so that was something that I noticed, and I felt it too. Add the book to your Goodreads, add the book to your Goodreads. I think that it's probably somewhat important, but I don't think it's the end all be all like some authors like to think it is.
Okay. Good to know. All right. Our last question for you, Mark. If you could give your pre-debut self one index card note, what would it say?
Let the book go. I think that's probably what it would be. And I think that's like a faceted sort of thing. Let my first book go, which I held on to for 9 years. I wouldn't let it go, and it wasn't ready and I wasn't ready. But then also later, at some point the book is the best that it can be, and you have to let it go and then let readers go and inhabit the world that you made.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Good
That
advice.
is beautiful. Mark, is there any parting words you want to leave us with?
I think this was just really a pleasure talking to all of you and being able to share a little bit about my journey. I think that every person's journey is going to be your own, and it's not going to be the same. So I would suggest anybody who's pursuing this, comparison is the thief of joy. Don't compare your journeys to other people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And try to celebrate the things. This is something for myself. Try to celebrate the good things because they can be really special.
With
Get yourself
milkshakes.
that milkshake. Yeah,
Yes.
get that
That's-
milkshake after you finish those at it. You deserve it.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Wayward Writers.
Let's connect. Find us at waywardwriters.com, X, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
See you next time. Conquer your path.